So good morning again, and once again, thank you very much to the Geneva Press Club. Congratulations to the makers of the documentary we just saw. I think it was very impressive, and it really tackles something that became perhaps one of the biggest dangers of humanity in present day, which is the disinformation campaigns that are led by sectarian groups with hate agendas, and that now are infiltrated everywhere, namely in what used to be the Western press that is just publicizing a lot of rubbish, and therefore we are dedicating this discussion to something that is really essential. Jammu and Kashmir, sifting facts from fiction. Well, I'm not a native English speaker, but fortunately I had, and I confess my ignorance, I did not know that sift means is used in tea, but unfortunately we have good native English speakers, and so I understood it. And that's really what we need to do, sift facts from fiction, exactly like when we pour tea and it's necessary to live in one side and the tea on the other. As we, certainly I think that all of you understand, we are now much shorter in time than what was planned in the first place. And I would like to give as much time as possible, namely for the people that come from the region and those who have been visiting it as well. We have a panel of a very interesting panel that combines people from the region with European parliamentarians that have been on the ground or other European officials. The first speaker of today is a former member of the European Parliament. He just left it, I think, a bit over a month from now. Mr. Nathan Gill, in the sequence of Brexit, and he has been in the region, and he's going to speak to us. I would appreciate that all of the speakers would contain themselves in 7 to 8 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. I was able to go to Kashmir to observe for myself what was actually happening during the period when Article 270 of the Constitution was revoked, and it was an interesting opportunity for me to not only see for myself what was happening on the ground, and also to speak with local people, and many people came from all over the region to speak to myself and Gianna and other parliamentarians. But it was also very interesting to watch the news in my hotel room that night and see the way that some of the Indian press was talking about the visit of the parliamentarians, and how, I guess, with the rise of Donald Trump in America, a lot of people now talk about this word fake news, don't they? It's something that we hear a lot. But it is not a new phenomenon, but it is a very real one. And it is a tool that nation states have used for thousands of years. And it is also a tool that political parties use against their opposition parties. And so, for me to see and be part of an event which was very positive, and it was an opportunity for lots of people to come and to express how they wanted their area to integrate with India, to become a normal part of India, and then to watch on the media and see how we were being portrayed as being far right, and it was a racist visit, and all these other terminology. It's something that I really hope that the UN and that media outlets from all over the world now, that they start to look at themselves and start to really question when they repeat messaging is it true what they are repeating? Have they actually checked and verified the messages that they have heard? Or are they themselves participating and spreading fake news? And the Bible talks about getting your own house in order. And I think that this is very important. You know, this is a message for all nations. If you want to point your finger at other nations, and if you want to preach to other nations, then make sure that your own house is in order. And India does not expect for it to preach to other nations. So, you know, it would not expect to interfere in the elections coming up in November in America. Nor would they expect to tell France how to deal with its terrorist problems which they are facing with the rise of Islam terrorism. It does not expect other nations to interfere in its internal operations either. It wants to be treated on an equal basis. And certainly in international forums like this, India expects, and really India should have an equal basis of mutual respect. Now the decision of India to abrogate Article 370 of the Indian Constitution was met with a great deal of hostility around the world and within India as well. But the realities are that all people wish to be dealt with on an equal basis, and this was something that was done in order to put the Indians that live in Kashmir on an equal basis with the rest of their nation. And already it is showing fruits. You know, this decision was a very bold decision by the Indian government, and the fruits have been shown very quickly, where schooling is returned to normal, hospitals are receiving the broadband services which they've been denied for so long, so that they can use broadband to help with medical procedures, and there are broadband services being set up throughout the Kashmir region, which was something that had to be stopped because of the spread of fake news and the incitement of some of the local people to violence through these media outlets. The Union territories now are seeing a new dawn ushered in their development and their progress, and the citizens have been able to participate in the Winter Games, which have been held in Ladakh, and they're also going to be held this month in two of the other regions in the Kashmir area. So it's an amazing opportunity for the Indians living there to feel that they are now a part of mainstream India, for them to participate in mainstream India, and not to feel that they are special, because nobody wants to be seen as being special. Everybody wants to be seen to be equal and to have equal opportunity. And that is what the abrogation of Article 370 was meant to instill, was meant to create. And the fruits are there to be seen. And we would encourage media outlets, encourage nations to see for themselves, to go there and to actually go on the ground, and not just to listen to media that is being sent out from hostile nations or from hostile organisations within India who are doing it for their own political agenda. And Kashmir is renowned throughout the world for its stunning vistas, for its mountain ranges, for its incredibly friendly people. And this bold move by the Indian government has been done with the intention of making sure that Kashmir is remembered for the positives and not for its violence. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And now, after having a testimony of a member of the European Parliament that witnessed what we felt in Kashmir after the passing of the revocation of Article 370, we will come back to Kashmir proper, and we will have the pleasure of hearing Mrs. Sayed Timina from the True Kashmir Voice and Rights. So it is our pleasure, and please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jammu from Kashmir. I have been a women rights activist and I am here to speak for my people. I'm from a place which is known as paradise on earth, but unfortunately lost to Pakistan-sponsored terrorist ideology. I am myself a victim of the conflict, and after so many years, I am seeing the positive ray of hope coming after the abrogation of Article 370. There were some certain rights given to women by our contemporary traditions which were taken away by this article. Women now would not lose their property rights if they get married to a person outside Kashmir. Central government laws would be fully applicable to the state, which promises justice to many women victims of violence. Kashmiri women have been the victim of social practices and militancy sponsored by the Pakistan government. There are no doubts about the fact that abrogation of Article 370 has its share of advantages. Abrogation of the article was undeniable need for curbing terrorism and insurgency in Kashmir. The abrogation has made Jammu and Kashmir an integral part of India, and the people from state will now be able to access better facilities just like any other Indian. Article 370 has been already very baseless for a longer time, because in some of the provisions of this article, outer organizations were not allowed to set up in Kashmir. But we have witnessed outer organizations like financial institutions being set up there. Apart from that, it will also enhance tourism and investment in the valley at national and international levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the testimony of women from Kashmir. This has been one of the perspectives that has been completely obfuscated in the West. The situation of women in Kashmir. And this is something that really confuses me, especially when it comes from those who are self-proclaimed to be the heroes of the rights of women. Then suddenly, when it comes to places like Kashmir, and unfortunately not only Kashmir, they forget everything that they supposedly are standing for, and they defend the opposite. This is something that really has been confusing me for quite some time, and it is really a pleasure to see that we have a woman in Kashmir speaking about the issue. I have as well been in Kashmir for quite some time before when the article was still in place, and I did have reached the same conclusion that the situation could not go on as it was, in the name of several things, and this perhaps is one of the fundamental issues, the rights of women. So now we will continue with women. Now, again, on the European side, the honourable member of the European Parliament from Italy, the north of Italy, this is Gianna Gancia. She has also visited the region, and she is going to give us some impressions of what she thinks of it. Please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We don't repeat what my colleague Nathaniel said, because I agree completely what he said and the picture he made about our visit in Kashmir. And I would like to say you that what said the colleague that speak about the right of women, it's a very important thing, and it's important for women. Don't forget that our rights are important, and there is a real risk there in the situation in Kashmir. India has maintained its stand on Kashmir and its firm decision of integrating the region into the mainstream as only the motives of driving in progress. Pakistan has been trying evil means to portray a picture of crisis in Kashmir on an international platform, but to its dismay, because of India's realism, humanitarian ideas, has spread Pakistan's evil intentions. What rises as Pakistan to discuss the interior and internal affairs of India on international problems. When a mass-scale violation of human rights is taking place in Pakistan, occupied Kashmir and Gilgit Pakistan, the claims of hypocrisy country goes in vain. If Pakistan has been so considerate about humanitarian ideas, it would not have continued its evil design of snatching away the rights of the religious and ethnic minorities. The deteriorating situation of minority communities in Pakistan as what prompted the Indian government under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to take stern action of introduction the Citizenship Amendment Act that tends to provide citizenship to those religiously persecuted in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. Pakistan has no right whatsoever to comment on Kashmir because even the religious illegally occupied, but it comes under the legal jurisdiction of India that sooner or later will come back to the rightful nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Honourable Member of the European Parliament, Mrs. Gianna Gancia. Now with micro. Thank you very much for the Honourable Member of the European Parliament, Mrs. Gianna Gancia, that stressed the fact that the international community sets the withdrawal of occupation forces from the former Principality of Jammu and Kashmir as a first step for whatever solution there would be, and actually these occupation forces never left and are still controlling the northern part of this former Principality. And now we will keep in Europe with a former official of the European Commission, Mr. Brian Toll. He has a long career in what people normally call bureaucratic management, but he has been, I knew him when he was handling the issues of education in Asia, and he actually helped us tremendously in SADF, South Asian Democratic Forum, to make guidelines for a long-standing peaceful solution in the region that stands exactly in an educational framework that promotes peace, understanding, and not supremacism of any kind, be it religious or whatever other supremacism. He is someone that made long part of his life in Central Asia. He is fluent speaker of several languages, and of course he's a native speaker of English, which is something that is always very, very needy for a person like me that uses it borrowing the language. So without any further delay, please, Brian, it is really a pleasure to be able to hear you.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and thank you to all the other speakers who have already gone before. It's a pleasure to be here, it's a pleasure to know Paolo, and it's even better when he says that I'm quite good, which is very nice. I think I'll go back to begin with to the film, and we had Plato, and we had the people looking at the images flashing across their screen and misinformation. My first association with Kashmir goes back to 1989, and it's very important that I think the world is populated by people. It's not populated by religions or fanaticism or ideologies. It's really people who are at the heart of it. And people have had the biggest influence on my life. Well, that's fairly obvious from my parents onwards. But the nicest was an 80-year-old lady who had retired and had enough money to do whatever she wanted in 1989. And she went round the world. She went to Kashmir, and she said it was the most beautiful place she had ever been, the most hospitable people. There were flowers brought to her on her houseboat in the morning along with breakfast. It was beautiful, it was tranquil, it was heaven on earth. She also, by the way, in 1989, spent time with the students in Tiananmen Square. She also did her first parachute jump when she was in Australia. She was also in Leningrad, St. Petersburg at the fall of the Berlin Wall. So from all of her world tour, practically the only thing that was peaceful, tranquil and beautiful was Kashmir. That has not been the situation in the last 30 years. If we're looking at, for example, Article 370 and the famous Article 35A that goes with it by presidential order, as Technina said, it is not actually a very fair piece of legislation. It looks at preventing female residents from having property rights if they marry a person from outside the state. So, is it right to transform Article 370 into something else? It's more in line with the secular democratic constitution of India, for justice, liberty and fraternity. In my humble view, the short answer is yes. Why? Because Kashmir suffers from very high unemployment and a great deal of poverty. What you do as a government is to try to redress the balance and try to get economic development and particularly education. If you're looking at the way Kashmir has developed, there has been a very great deal of militancy. It's been done through social media. It's been done through using funerals as a way of promoting tendencies towards radicalization, towards militancy, etc. And Pakistan-based groups have been very responsible for this. Going back to the United Nations Security Council resolutions of 1948, one of the things in there is it talks about trying to bring peace by not taking actions which are inflammatory. It tries to make sure that people have good information and work towards an agenda for peace, tolerance, and a positive agenda overall. In terms of the international view, the first international speaker is normally Pakistan when it comes to India relations. And from the time when Prime Minister Modi was first coming into power in 2014, the then Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was actually there for the swearing in Delhi. There were signs of some sort of arrangement coming between the countries, some sort of deal that could bring peace. But then later, there were Pakistan-based groups that were involved in attacks on Indian soil. I remember again, in terms of people, that one of the things that I was really surprised about, and won't surprise those of you who are India-Pakistan experts or from that part of the world, that when I was working in a diplomatic career in Central Asia, two of the nicest people were the Pakistan ambassador and the Indian ambassador. And they were great friends. She, the Pakistani ambassador, would speak her language. He, the Indian ambassador, would speak his language, and they were mutually comprehensible. So, what is the problem between India and Pakistan? It goes down to the ideologies that are being promoted by people who have a different agenda, not an agenda of peace, but an agenda of power in their minds. Imran Khan, when he came to power in 2018, talked about the problems of the disputed territory, to use his words, where peace would be tremendous for the wider region, with a view to reducing poverty. And the way to do that, he said, at that time in 2018, was by settling differences through dialogue, and there is only one difference, which is Kashmir. Further to that, 1 year later, on the revoking of Article 370 by India, he talked about India having a program of racial superiority of Hindus, hating Muslims and Christians, talking about a bloodbath, and these are all very much statements which might aggravate the situation, which therefore go back to 1947, 1948, and the UN Security Council and the UN Commission for India and Pakistan talking about trying to reduce tensions, not increase the tensions. Imran has talked about a Srebrenica-type massacre, which is not exactly helpful. He warns the international community. He talks about standing by Kashmiris being jihad. It is not very helpful. I'll leave that aside and go on to something else. How about education? The field that I've worked in for my last 5 years in my career before I retired. And there are many reports about education in India, Pakistan, South Asia as a whole, particularly by the World Bank. And in Learning to Realise Education's Promise, a World Bank report of September 2017, they talk about the problems of failing to educate people, schooling without learning. If people don't have the skills, if people don't have the knowledge, the basis in facts, the basis through education, the tolerance and understanding, then they don't have any future. If there is no ray of hope, if there is no future, people have a problem. And especially if people are considered to be illegal migrants, or having no status within a state, or having no future within a state, the only thing they can do is turn to criminality or fanatical attacks on the people who are there. So, India has had tremendous economic growth recently. Sorry to use the word tremendous, it sounds like Donald Trump. I'll try to avoid that in the future. But the economic growth in India has been driven by skills-intensive sectors. In Kashmir, there have been curfews, there have been strikes, there have been over 100 days per year lost to civil actions. If schools are closed, people can't learn. If people can't learn, it pushes them into violence and into terrorism. Educational institutions need to get through the curriculum. If they don't have the time to do it because they only have half the year in order to educate the children who are there becomes a problem. As Jasmina said, women have a particular part to play in society, and women are not sufficiently represented, in my view, neither in hers, in participating in the economy. Workforce participation is round about 10.6% in Kashmir for women, whereas it's 27.4% overall in India. And the rates are going down. In 2011, it was around about 20% in rural areas, 14% in urban areas. Now it's about half of that. So if women are not able to take their place in the workforce, it means there is more poverty, it means there is disenfranchisement of women, there is an increased risk of violence against women, and the situation cannot get better unless women have their place in society. So, just coming to a conclusion, I think it's hugely important that education is seen as positive, and education on the real possibilities of India is very, very vital for Kashmir's future. There was an author who was unknown who came out with a phrase that it is vaguely attributed to a 15th century English monk and poet. 15th century is quite nice for me. It's the time where I feel comfortable. It's sort of my era. But in it, he said, the thing that you've all heard before, you can please some of the people all of the time. You can please all of the people some of the time, but you can't please all of the people all of the time. I think that is especially true if you're living in the world's largest democracy and if you're the government of that area. But I think tolerance and understanding, not inflammatory words or actions, can lead to a harmonious and prosperous Kashmir, which must be in everybody's interests. I think what we need to look at is the similarities, not the differences. And that way, I think Kashmir and the world can move forward, and we can go back to enjoying houseboats, flowers with breakfast, and the beauties of Kashmir, not just seeing the problems. Thank you.
I am really looking very much forward to this day, perhaps not in my lifetime, but I hope it will happen. And I hope it will happen sooner rather than later. This was a brilliant speech. Perhaps I would just highlight these good intentions of the present Prime Minister Imran Khan that very suddenly disappeared and were transformed into the normal hate speech that is really so detrimental to this bilateral relation between these two countries that are the two main countries in South Asia. It's really it's something really that we have to understand by a deep state that does not allow the best intentions to grow. And now we have political party president, the National Equality Party of Jammu and Kashmir, Gilgit, Baltistan, Ladakh, so the whole of the territories covered by the former principality. It is Mr. Mohammad Sajjad Raja. He is heading what is the only party of all of the territories involved, and I think his words will be crucial for us to have a better understanding of what is going on over there. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic today is basically I'm a political
vision, perhaps. You need it. No, it's okay.
I can assure you.
Okay.
No problem. The topic is basically fiction and fact. So, honorable members of the panel have already spoken about the present situation in Jammu and Kashmir. They have discussed Article 370, 35A, what's happening in the valley now, and a little bit of the background. But it hasn't been, I think, addressed with people's perspective. And what I am interested in, on behalf of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, on behalf of the people of Gilgit and Baltistan, is people's perspective. What do the people want? It's not India and Pakistan. They are obviously recognized parties to the conflict, but mainly it's people of the territory, people of the region, people of the area who matter the most. And we are sitting here in the hub of the human rights movement. And obviously we need to look at the issue according to the human rights values. I'll try to remain within the boundaries of the topic, fiction and fact, and the three main fictions I would like to discuss with you, I would like to present to you today are number one, first of all, is Kashmir, because all people have been, with due respect and apologies to Tamina Ban, everybody has been talking about Kashmir. It's not Kashmir. This is fiction. Kashmir is a fiction. Kashmir is part of the whole state of Jammu Kashmir and Aksai Tibatha, which is spread over 85,806 square miles, whereas Kashmir is only 6,156 square miles. Population of the whole country or whole state is about 20 million. And population of Kashmir is about 7 million. So it's not just the Kashmir. It's not just Kashmir Valley. This fiction has been promoted, projected by Pakistan, unfortunately. What is the fact? The fact is that it is not just Kashmir. It is, Singh is sitting there. It is Gilgit-Baltistan. It is Jammu. And it's POJK. It's not POK. Again, with due respect, it's not POK. It's not Pakistani occupied Kashmir. It's Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And bulk of the region, which is known as Pakistani occupied Kashmir, is part of Jammu province, a formerly princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. So, the other thing is, as it has been, the dispute is between Pakistan and India, and Pakistan is claiming that it is part of Pakistan. That is a fiction. In fact, and that is which we need to understand, I think, and this is what we need to explain to the world, that Jammu and Kashmir is not part of Pakistan. Pakistan is an illegal occupier of our country. Pakistan is an illegal invader, and it has been recognized and acknowledged by the world that Pakistan was illegal invader of the region and then illegal occupier. I give you an example. We are sitting here in this press club. If a group of armed people come here and they occupy this premises and they make us hostages, and then somehow the authorities, they fail, or they don't rescue us, or they don't become able to throw these occupiers or these invaders out of this premises, what do you think? 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, 50 years down the line, 75 years down the line, would this premises, any of you, will you recognize it as a legal ownership or legal property of that group of militants, or group of armed people, or group of invaders? That is what has happened to Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan invaded our country, our state, in 1947, on the night between 21st of October and 22nd of October 1947. And since that day, it has been occupied by Pakistan. World hasn't acknowledged it, and it is a constitutional part of India. Indian Constitution says, and Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir, which with abrogation of this Article 370 and 35A, this Constitution is probably no more active, but still, that Constitution says that we are part of that state, and we are not part of Pakistan. And as I have seen in the film, Sarhadi Gandhi, as he is familiarly known as, Bacha Khan, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, said to Mahatma Gandhi that you have left us to the wolves. And this is, it is not that NWFP only. In fact, we all have been Singh and Gilgit-Baltistan and Pakistani-occupied Jammu Kashmir. We all have been left to the wolves. And we obviously we are trying our best to bring truth to the world and to separate this fiction from the fact.